One prospective client wanted me to sue Burger King for no longer serving pancakes.
I am a personal injury lawyer in the UK. I took a call from a potential client that had fallen down the stairs in her own home. She had tripped over her own cat. She told me that she wanted to sue her local authority as her home was owned by the council and she was not allowed to keep pets as part of her lease. She claimed that when the house was inspected she was not told to get rid of the cat. It was therefore the council's fault that she fell down the stairs. We didn't take the case on.
Let me preface this, I had heard about the guy I'm going to mention below before I had actually met him. I thought this was an urban legend, until he came into my office one day. A guy in his late 50s/early 60s comes into the lobby area of my office and starts a commotion that freaks out the receptionist. I was the closest attorney to the lobby, so I go out and talk to the guy. He was clearly mentally disturbed and presented the following story. Someone had implanted a device in his brain that was controlling his behavior. He believed it was being controlled by Baskin-Robbins and a former mayor of Detroit. He believed they were forcing him to do random things like going to bars to drink, taking the wrong turn when driving, forcing him to retire from his job, and a lot of very other intricate things. After asking him if he had seen any doctors regarding the implant, he got really upset and said that he thought the doctors were in on it as well. After telling him I couldn't help him and suggesting that he find some new doctors, he asked me if I knew any lawyers who specialized in his kind of case. I often wonder if the lawyer I referred him to was able to help him. Without going into too many details, had a guy that wanted to bring a class action against the company that made his underwear. Because he was convinced his underwear was the reason he had a crooked dick. He assured us that as soon as the jury saw his dick they'd side with him. No, we didn't take it.
My mother said that at a law firm she used to work at many years ago, they had received a call from a gentleman that wanted to file a lawsuit against Walt Disney. When asked why he was filing suit, he claimed that the Disney characters were coming out of the TV and stealing food from his refrigerator. They told him they'd take the case for an advance fee of $100,000 and never heard back from him.
My father is a patent attorney, and when I was around 14, he told me about a guy who wanted to patent the iPhone 3 because aliens had given him the design for it. My father told him that if the aliens originally designed then they were the ones that had to patent it, not him.
I was working intake for my firm. One day a lady calls up and says I have a great case. She told me that a few months ago she had gone in for back surgery and things went terribly wrong, so at this point I'm thinking okay it's some kind of med mal. Then she tells me, while she was under, President Obama snuck in the room and put pig skin into her. The pig skin is still inside her and making her sick. I went to the partner and told him I have a great case. The bad news is that the defendant has civil immunity for at least the next 3 years. I was then told to go back to work. We did not take the case.
Guy came in and had a company build a shed on some land. On the phone, he told me it was built incorrectly. He insisted on meeting. When he got to my office, I asked him what was wrong with the building. Was it structurally deficient? Dangerous? Etc. None of the above. Turns out it was not perfectly square with the road in front of it. It was off by a foot. You could not tell by the naked eye, but he would always know and it bugged him. I told him that without any real damages, he had no case. He stormed out angrily. Client wanted to sue because there were no strawberries in her fruit salad, which she bought from a supermarket. Thankfully a secretary was able to screen the call. She asked if the package said it had strawberries, and the response was, no, but I thought it would have. I don't know how these people manage to make it through life. I had a client come in saying that he needed to sue Stu for robbing all his checks. When I asked him if Stu had a last name, he said no. When I asked him if he knew any Stu, he said no. When I asked him what proof he had that Stu was robbing him, he showed me all of his pay stubs. There were clear, monthly deductions by SCU. As soon as I saw it, I knew. I asked, do you have children? He said yes. I then told him your Stu is the SCU, the support collection unit. They take money out of your check to pay for your child. He left the office insisting that we needed to find Stu. I was working in a law firm and got a call from reception advising that someone had arrived needing some intellectual property advice. I arrived at reception to find a clearly disturbed woman with a persistent facial twitch and a small, wheeled suitcase. I took her to a conference room to discuss, making sure I kept a good line of sight to reception. She put the suitcase on the table and opened it to reveal a stack of thousands of handwritten pages and one half of a pair of scissors, so I guess a scissor? She explained that she had written a manuscript about how the city council gave her schizophrenia and hepatitis, aliens stole her pets, and that it was all part of a bigger conspiracy involving the army and the Illuminati. She was worried that our local newspaper was going to steal her thoughts and publish her manuscript without her consent, and wanted to register the copyright in her manuscript. We then had a perfectly rational and reasonable discussion about copyright laws. I explained that in our jurisdiction she didn't need to register it and that she had rights as an author automatically on creation of the work. I told her the most useful thing she could do is ensure she had evidence of her creative work, and that she should send a digital copy to herself and a friend, and also leave a copy with a friend. That way if it was published without her consent she could prove it was her work. We spoke for nearly an hour, she thanked me and then left. She got free legal advice, and I didn't get stabbed with a scissor. I hope she found the help she needs. I dealt with a guy once who wanted me to take on his road traffic accident PI claim. He had written a poem, in Yoruba, about the accident. He refused to tell me anything about his case until he's read the whole thing, in Yoruba. Among other problems, I can't speak any fucking Yoruba. As in, not one word. As in, that day was the first time I had ever heard of the Yoruba language. I'm not even from a part of the world where I might readily be mistaken for someone who speaks Yoruba. It's a West African language, and I am really obviously not from a West African background. I try to explain this to the guy who becomes very agitated and insists that he must read out his poem in Yoruba. I give up and tell him to get on with it so we can talk about his claim. He does. It takes him nearly 20 minutes to finish. Anyway, after he's done, he finishes and sits back with a big smile and says that he's certain I'll take his case on now. I begin to ask him some questions about his case, but he refuses to answer. He says that this poem, in Yoruba, is everything I need to know about his case. Basically, I tell him to fuck off and stop wasting my time. He does, but not before standing around outside my office for an hour or so, reading out his poem, to no one in particular, over and over again. In Yoruba. Patent lawyer. I didn't represent this guy, but he wanted to file patent applications for the reanimation of dead children to be parented by robots. Apparently living parents are one of the causes of society's greatest issues, but I can't remember what that issue was. He had dozens of pages of hand-drawn figures, including one professionally drawn figure for a microwave water boiler apparatus, which was an invention he had actually patented in the past. He also claimed to be the mayor of a town in New York and paid most of his fees to the patent office with gold coins. He later claimed the patent office couldn't reject his application as the fee/coins had bankrupted him, and he cited some civil procedure rules about courts not ruling if the case has cost a party too much money to respond, which was very much not applicable in this instance.
I was asked to sue someone's coworker because they were so smelly that it a person not able to work. I did not take the case.
It's hard to pick the stupidest case, but the most recent stupid case was a guy that wanted to sue the city and his realtor for allowing so many Somalians to move to the area and for not disclosing that so many Somalians lived in the area, respectively. He liked his house and wanted to stay, but wanted the city to evict and resettle all Somalians within 2 city blocks of his house and his realtor to pay damages of $1,000 for diminished enjoyment/use of his property for every day after closing until the final eviction. He was dead serious. Despite being a racist and xenophobe, he overall presented himself intelligently and had done some research on possible causes of action.